Um, Welcome back, guys, to the Uncapped Poker Podcast. Today, I am joined with my co-host Lucas. Please like, subscribe. Only 20% of you watching are subscribed. We would love to have more of you guys hit that red button. Today, we're also joined by Bet Rivers ambassador, Dr. Dad, who's been streaming for years, and I've had the pleasure of playing with him for a long time. And I used to get very tilted playing against him because he ran good on me, and I would call him Dr. Luckbox in the chat. I don't know if he remembers that, but yeah. How you doing today, Dr. Dad? Dan Show.
Yeah, doing well. Doing well. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, guys.
Of course. So I guess to get started, let's go over a little bit about your life and how your life ended up here into poker and, being an ambassador and streaming.
Absolutely. So I can start at the very beginning of how I got into poker, and then we can sort of get into, where we're at today with working with Bet Rivers. So started out with poker pretty young. So I am from Wisconsin originally. My dad is who got me into poker. So for context, I'm 35. So, moneymaker boom era player. So when I started playing as a kid, it was just like 5-card draw, 7-card stud. So this was before moneymaker and Hold'em sort of took over the space. And so some of my early memories are playing those games with my dad, and playing like cribbage by the bonfire when we were camping up north in Wisconsin. And so started with some card games early. Then with the moneymaker boom happening, a lot of my friends from middle school wanted to get into poker, and so we started playing, $5, $10 MTTs. Basically sit and goes. Most of the time, just one table, sometimes 2 or 3. And that was where I really started getting interested in it, but I wasn't really taking the game seriously or studying or anything. Just sort of having some fun with buddies. Then same when I went off to college, did my undergrad at University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, so a little bit north. Played sporadically there with some buddies in college. Would occasionally go and dabble in cash, but again, just not like taking the game seriously. Not like a winning player, not massively losing, but not like making strides in my game or anything. But some of my good memories from early on in poker were right when I turned 21, actually. My dad and I were standing outside the casino in Milwaukee. Potawatomi is the casino there, and we walked in the doors right when I turned 21 to go play some 1-2 at the time. And that was cool, sitting with my dad playing in a casino for the first time as being 21. I did dabble a little bit before then at a casino in that neighboring state, Minnesota, had a card room in Canterbury Park where you could be 18. So one time when I was home for college over the summer, I just got the inkling to drive over for a daily Sunday. It's like a 5-hour drive from Milwaukee. So I just drove like overnight, left at like 2 in the morning, and made it over there for that tournament. That was a cool experience. But again, all of this was just sort of just like dabbling and not really understanding what I'm doing. And so when I really started to get into poker was when online sites were launching in Michigan. So I saw so what brought me to Michigan, I guess I should backtrack a little bit, was that, so I did my undergrad at UW Green Bay. Then I went and did my PhD at the Medical College of Wisconsin, so it's back in Milwaukee. So I spent most of my life in Wisconsin at grad school and at the medical college. I met my wife, Becky. Shout out to Dr. Mom. She's awesome, and much better scientist than me. So that was what led us to follow her career path to a great lab here in Michigan at the University of Michigan. So after you complete your PhD, you do what's called a postdoc, and so it's like a term limited position, usually like 5 years, working in a lab. And so that brought us out here, a great lab for her, and I was able to find a job at Michigan as well, which was great. So we were both scientists there. And then early on in our time here, they announced that they passed legislation to have online poker, and so that got me excited about getting back into the game. And I after they announced the legislation, it took them about a year to launch like the first regulated site. There's a lot of bureaucratic red tape, as I'm sure you guys are aware. And so then I started watching some Twitch streams. Started out watching like Jamie Staples a lot, Spraggy, and then I discovered some of the U.S. guys, David K being one of my favorites, as well as my fellow stream team member, Keith Becker, Accidental Grenade, and his partner Nio. I watched a lot of the U.S. guys and sort of got into the community relatively early. And then when sites launched, started to take the game a lot more seriously. And it's kind of been going strong from there.
That was one of the most well-spoken introductions we've ever had.
Maybe too many words, but
yeah. That was perfect. So can you speak to your time when you first sat in the casino and played with your dad? Because I mean, obviously that's a memory that is to your core, right? I have poker memories that are similar. So just speak on that. And did you win?
I don't remember. I feel like if I would have won a lot, I would remember, and I feel like if I would have lost a stack, that I would remember. So I imagine it was relatively small either direction. It was awesome sitting across from my dad. I think like sometimes people in like those small stakes games at the casino, are a little weary if you're like sitting with somebody that you know. But my dad and I are so competitive that I wanted to win pots against him, so I was like seeking out ways that we could mix it up with one another, and we would have battles at home playing heads up, and it was so fun. Like a lot of my like best memories are tied with sitting across the table from him and trying to get the best of him. You always want to beat your dad. When we started playing sports when I was younger, bowling, golf, things like that. Like that was like my sign of if I made it or not. It's like when I can finally beat my dad, and my kid feels the same way now about me.
Yeah, I mean that's why having a really good dad is important to a lot of people. But to speak on like I smile remembering the early times in poker, right, or your poker journey, because to keep it short, like I remember going to Borgata for the first time when I was 21, and I never played in like before, and I sat down at like a 1-3 game, and I was so scared. Like I remember like this is the big leagues, and like my heart was pounding. And dude, I remember like I watched Doug Polk too early because he would always be like, you have to go for it sometimes. And I remember like we were multi-way and I had complete dust, and like I just was like, you got to go for it sometimes, and just barreled like $350 or $400 into the complete nuts. Like the guy was just calling me down. And I remember going on a long walk in the casino just being so depressed because it was almost half my net worth at the time. It was so poor. Anyway, funny.
I mean, I'm more power to you in that, like, you were willing to fire off that early and stuff. I don't know. I joke with some of my poker friends that I'm a partially reformed nit. That I was always like a little tighter when I first started, but as I've learned more about the game, trying to ramp up finding the bluffs in certain spots. But that's courageous if you're going in right away and barreling down. So I give you credit for that.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, there's two types of players that get like nurtured. It's guys that are crazy in the beginning that don't fire bluffs appropriately, like are not thinking about that, and it's like putting the dog, like taming the dog. And then there's guys where like you open the cage and have to let the dog out sometimes, and like hopefully we all end up reaching the same goal, but it's similar to that.
So, Dan, tell us about when you started playing online in Michigan. Were you mainly playing cash? Were you playing tournaments? What was your sort of... What did you prefer? What did you like to play at the time?
Yeah, so for me online, it's almost exclusively been tournaments, and so
Mm-hmm.
I think from watching some of the like Twitch streamers early on, David K being an exception, that primarily tournaments is what I was watching, and I just like the like story aspect of tournaments and the ability to make quite a few buy-ins from a small investment. So I just dove right into tournaments. So when the first site that I had played on was Stars, and I told my wife that I was going to take like $600 and put it on Stars, and that uh, I would just put that on, and we'll see where it goes. And so
Mm-hmm.
I just started off playing like $5 and $10 MTTs, and I fortunately from that initial deposit have not had to redeposit. I've just built the roll from that original deposit, and so uh, it was a lot. I remember like taking down like my first like $5 like the hot five on Stars, and really excited and called my dad. Was talking to him about that it was just awesome having the ability to play online here. Because I mean, live tournaments are great. I love to dabble in live. Have had some success there, and we can talk about that later. But there's just awesome to be able to sit in your pajamas in your basement and fire up a bunch of tournaments. Whereas you
Yeah.
can sit playing live all day and miss out on bagging and have to go back and do it again the next day. And so I
Yeah.
just really liked the online aspect of being able to multi-table. Also, with my background of coming from having a PhD, uh,
Mm-hmm.
the online aspect of being able to look at data, analyze your game, look at data from other players and things is was alluring to me as well. I think
Mm-hmm.
that I if I had so I didn't play online until Michigan launched the sites. I've not dabbled in the unregulated sites. I've exclusively been in the regulated market, and I feel like I got back into the game at the right time, and that uh, I spent a lot of time in my like years in education learning how to study efficiently and learn with information that is available. And
Mm-hmm.
poker nowadays, there's a lot of great content out there to make you better at the game, whether it be
Mm-hmm.
tools that you use to study, like Wizard or other tools, or like coaching videos and things like that. Learning from the best in the game. And so I feel like getting back in the game when I did was right for me, and that I was able to, utilize some of my skills that I acquired through education to then
Mm-hmm.
pursue it about something I'm really passionate about, being poker.
Yeah, I mean, it's so, in some sense you lucked out, right? Because you were Wisconsin, and then your wife got a good job at Michigan State University, and like it's almost like things just worked out and were meant to be. I mean, have you ever lived anywhere that was warm? Like, oh God, like Wisconsin and Michigan are so cold. Um,
No, yeah, it's Midwest for me always through and through. I was just in the Dominican Republic, which was really nice. So we were there for vacation for my son's spring break. So I definitely see the allure of the warm environments. But I love the four seasons. I don't mind
yeah.
winter as much where we are currently, and that we don't get a tremendous amount of snow. And I'm used to
Hmm.
dealing with the cold. And fall is my favorite time of year. I love, as I
Yeah.
said, sitting out by the bonfire and listening to some old, I guess it's oldies now, '90s alternative, having a beer when there's football on and playoff baseball. Fall is just the best time of year. So, and summer is
Yeah.
quite beautiful in parts of Michigan and Wisconsin. Up north is really beautiful.
Yeah.
If you haven't been, I would recommend making a summer trip.
Yeah, I actually have not been to Michigan yet, and both my grandparents went to Michigan State University. They are no, they're not. It's my dad's side. They both have passed, but um, yeah, I actually have family in Michigan. It's just like I never made my way up. To stay on track here, not to get too far off. I've heard very good things about Midwestern people. Like they're so nice, and then like people in New Jersey were not so nice. Like you guys are very good people. Anyway, so speaking of, so you started on Poker Stars, right? Did you have some sort of a connection to some of the tournaments there? I think you've had some good scoop runs and stuff as well.
Yeah, I've done all right on stars. I mean, that was where I did like most of my volume for like the early part of my online career here in Michigan. I don't. I've had like some decent scoop results. I don't have an official trophy. I do like one of my big scoop wins was taking down the closer of scoop for I think it was like just under 12K or something. But that one didn't have a trophy associated with it. I've not actually gotten like a tremendous amount of the physical trophies. I do have a couple Bet Rivers ones behind me now. I have a couple from MGM, but still have not quite gotten a WSOP ring. I guess this is maybe a bad beat story, but I have I've made, believe it or not, 27 ring FTs and not won one. I think you could play bad, I think, and still like win one of those by chance if you're like make that many of the final tables, right? But it's got. I mean, I think it's partially like maybe a little mental thing or something I'm doing in some of the spots, but and again, wipe my tears, I guess, like with the it's still like good financial outcome making final tables, but the rings elude me on WSOP, but it's been nice to get some hardware. I have a couple more Rivers trophies coming from our last series that we just had. My son likes to show off the physical trophies. He comes down to the office and shows his friends, oh, look, my dad has trophies. And so I love when sites do the physical trophies. So I think that's a great way to, help promote the game.
Yeah, trophies are the best. I have my 2 scoop trophies. That's it. I made 1 ring FT. It was live, and I launched it into a station. It was a good bluff, but it was just not against the right person. Anyway, Lucas, you look like you have an
27
question
FTs
over
in the
there.
ring is pretty rough. I've been like really wanting to make some deep runs in these ring events and stuff. Got close during the last circuit series. Made an FT, but 27 with no wins is rough.
Yeah, I will preface that with a majority of them coming when it was Michigan only, a little bit smaller fields. I have made some, now that we've been merged with Nevada and you guys as well. But my volume has gone down a little, after with working with Rivers. My agreement with them is that I am allowed to play on other regulated sites when not streaming. When I'm streaming, it's just going to be Rivers. But definitely have decreased my volume a little bit, in that I have just wanted to spend a little bit more family time with my wife and son on days when I'm not streaming. So
yeah, that's definitely understandable. Do you think there's I guess staying on like the point of like the mental aspect of it, like when you make a ring FT, do you almost sort of feel like do you feel in the optimistic sense like, oh, I'm due, or do you feel in the pessimistic sense like, oh, how are they going to do it to me again? I'm sort of curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like different every time. I mean, there's some times where I'm like, yeah, it's got to happen one of these times, right? But like I think like one that was particularly painful was against one of my good buddies. So through streaming, it's been great making a community here with some fellow Michigan poker players, and I hang out with several outside of just playing. So shout out to Brian. He took me down in heads up in a ring event. I made like an ace high hero call like for like 80% of the chips and was right, but then he got there, and he had already had a couple rings, and that one was just like a little bittersweet. It's like your friend wins, but so you're happy for him, but you're sad to not take it down yourself with the competitive juices that we have flowing. I mean, I would say like probably early on, I would maybe like avoid some spots, trying to more so like ladder up, or I feel like sometimes like early on in my career I was maybe not like playing for the win as much as I should have, and then later on I was maybe taking a couple spots where I could have passed, and then it's like going the opposite direction of going for the win and you know going for the triple barrel that then it doesn't work. And I think it's a good learning experience either way. And one thing I have been trying to work on more lately is like the mental side of things. So we spend a lot of time studying how to ideally play good theory, but the mental side of things is very important as well. And so I've been getting like some audiobooks of Elliot Rowe's A Game and Jared Tendler's Mental Game of Poker. I previously worked with BBZ online site. They have a mental game coach. Was attending those seminars, working with him through those. And so I think as players like start to get better and better, that is going to be where there's like a little bit of a gap is on like the mental aspect of things and how you handle challenges throughout your career.
I mean, it's funny you say that because like I'm working with a coach now. He's in the pool, so I just don't know if he wants to be named, so I won't name him. But he's like, he's so funny because like he'll be like, make sure, like he'll write sticky notes and like he'll tell me like, you have to break down this thought process. Make sure you're taking deep breaths like throughout your decision making because you want to stay present and like grounded and focused. I'm like, all right, like some of the best players now are taking this stuff so seriously, like making sure they're staying present and like balanced and emotionally aware. Yeah, Lucas, you had a point?
Yeah, I think mental game is, and I don't know, because I know Galfond has actually posted a few things, and I know he's obviously a part of Bet Rivers, but I know he's posted a few things on his YouTube. Not that many views, but it was like pretty good stuff about mental game. I think it was with Elliot Rose, if I'm not mistaken. And he also posted some stuff on like sleeping and how to get good sleep to like maximize performance and all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. So was that sort of how you kind of went down this rabbit hole, is through Galfond and his affiliation with Bet Rivers, or?
I definitely watch everything that Phil puts out. Big fan. I think he's definitely working with some of the best in the field, and definitely like the stuff that he's putting out in regards to that. And obviously with the experience that he has in the space, he's going to be a great person to listen to. I think that what sort of got me rolling on this side of things was just like I've dealt with several downswings, of varying sizes, and so for me, it was like wanting to not like be able to handle some of the emotions of the negative side of the game, but then also see how that translates to bringing the best side of myself, to my family. Of originally I was going in with the intention of like, I need to like make sure I'm leaving everything on the table, but it's important and healthy to talk about your emotions. And if you're going through struggles in the game, like sharing that with your significant other, even if they're not like heavily invested or understand like everything about poker, is still important. And same with my son. And so just like being able to not necessarily just put away your emotions, but just like be able to talk about them in a healthy way and experience them. And so that dealing with downswings and working with some of the sites that I was training sites that I was working with, and then putting an emphasis on that, some of that stuff, sort of opened my eyes to the importance of that.
Yeah, it's funny you say not to have emotions, right? But like I think from a lot of the things that I've learned, and even outside of poker, things that I've learned about emotions is and feelings is it's a lot that's going on inside you, and it's not about not utilizing it. It's just utilizing it in a positive direction. So you could take that and then harness it into a lot of negative, or harness it into something positive, and like that's really becoming the master of what's going on inside. And poker's really funny because people think that the best way is to be a robot, right? But I think it's sort of impossible to be a robot, and poker's always going to spark emotions, adrenaline, dopamine. Like we're always working with what's going on inside, despite it just being like a video game on the computer.
Yeah, I mean, and to expand a little further as well, I mean, I think like I started to see that like, if I was trying to block out some of the negative, that like sometimes celebrating the wins was a little bit more difficult as well. And so I've tried to make an emphasis of, celebrating the wins as well and getting excited because this game, as you guys know, can beat us down at times. And so it's important to, celebrate successes. So we have a rule that, if at any 5K score, we go out, my wife and I and my son will join sometimes as well, go out to like a nice fancy dinner, go get a nice steak. So that's like a little reward. But also, just celebrating the small wins as well. It's important to, also interact with the positive side of things. I've had a fortunate, like a great start to the year in terms of results. And so, I mean, it's also important to acknowledge when you're running good, right? Like I'm running good to start the year. So, so that you can hopefully remember that, on the times when it's not going so well.
Yeah.
That's so important, actually. Like being able, like, because everyone's going to go through their moments when they're upswinging or downswinging, and also it can coincide with you running good or bad, or you're just getting better, whatever the case may be. And, like, being able to just remember those moments when you did run good, because it can be, especially when you're downswinging, it's like, wow, like, those flips, like, a month ago, I made those look so easy. Or these 2080s, I was just winning them and ripping them. And now you can't hold in an 80-20 to save your life, like no matter what, how deep you are in a tournament. So I definitely understand that. And in celebrating wins is also so important. I think people, even if it's like, even if you're firing 250s or 500s, I think everyone wants the big score, but I think it is really important to just post, like if you're in the 25 and you win it, post it, share, feel proud about yourself, because it's hard to win a tournament. Like you have to understand, like it's very hard to actually win a tournament. Like no matter what stake it is, and especially the more runners and the bigger the pools get. I mean, it's gonna get harder and harder. So celebrating wins is definitely one of my big things. Is just celebrating achievements and don't forget that, like, yeah, you're still good, you're still capable.
I think I've learned that from you two today. I'm just going to start doing that because I've not had a good start to the year. So like, and like I'll win the 25 or something and be just like fucking whatever. Like I just, but I need to. I'm going to take that from this podcast. I'm learning from you two because you both seem to be very good at that.
Yeah, I mean, so we have in my Discord an achievement section. Yeah, we post wins of all sizes, and then you get all the emote hype from everybody, and we love to celebrate each other in the Twitch chat as well. I think it's important to cheer on your friends. Obviously we're competing with each other at the table, and when you're sitting across from me, I want to take all your chips. But it's an interesting space that we're in. Of you can also root for your competitors, and I think it's healthy to be able to do that as well. And with the emotion side of things as well, like I think it's an important aspect of content, right? Because like if somebody's just like robotic and I just won, like it's not gonna make for clips, right? Like some of my most funny clips or most viewed clips are like one of me like falling out of a chair reacting to like a beat, or like or when I'm like just screaming because I like took down a big tournament and I go and wake up my wife at like 2 a.m. and we pop a bottle of champagne and stuff like that. Things like that are like what people are looking for in the content space, not necessarily just like the most technically sound or robotically grounded person. So I think having a little, we have to remember we're playing a game. We got to have a little fun too, right?
Yeah.
And I think poker needs it. Like poker needs that sort of spark. To draw people to the game, to keep this game alive and well and fresh. Part of the reason we started this podcast because like we don't know that we want to know more about the faces behind the stories. Like it's been great. But yeah, it makes me smile when you say stuff like you pop a bottle of champagne or you react to a bad beat, right? And it's not about not having those reactions; it's just about doing our best to not let it get too far, right, and torch our game, or making sure it stays light and fun. At the end of the day, it is a game. Speaking of which, I've been thinking about this for like 20 minutes. Can you please show me your Bet Rivers trophies? Or just one of them? Like, I want to see what it looks like.
Well, I'll show two just because. So these are the like what you'd standard like get for like winning an event. So it's got like this like Bet Rivers chip. So this is like what they were giving out for winning like just like a specific event, and then they also have the fancier leaderboard. So here's the leaderboard one. So this one was for taking down the silver leaderboard during one of the series. This like chip like comes out. It's like it's got some weight to it. So these ones are cool.
I love that creativity. I've heard bad things about the BetMGM trophies.
They're glass ones. They're in the corner over there. Yeah, I don't know. I think they're nice as well. I like.
They're nice. Okay.
Like I said, I like physical trophies. I think it's a great aspect of giving people things to show to their family, right? Like it. Right. Yes, you can show them your account balance and say, look, I'm up a bunch of money, but there's just something different about, I don't know, maybe that's because I didn't win enough trophies in sports as a kid or something, but I definitely like having the trophies.
No, I think talking to people on here, like, it's one of those silly things, right? It's just a trophy or a ring, but, like, it means a lot to people, and it means a lot for the chase, and, like, to me, I want to accumulate trophies and it's part of the sport of playing poker tournaments. It's funny because everybody and every tournament player seems to have some sort of desire to get a trophy or a ring or a bracelet, something we chase. So speak to me about you were streaming all different types of poker tournaments, and then you got, obviously now you're working with Bet Rivers. Like, what's that transition now to being independent solo to now having to represent a company and sort of follow structure?
I can go back a little further, I guess, to when I sort of started streaming and, what led to where I'm at now with that. So what I originally got into streaming was, it was several months after launch. So I started playing, in like February the year that the site's launched. And I, was having some success early. I wanted to, before I got into streaming myself, as I said, I was interacting in a lot of these chats. I was thinking about streaming myself, but for some reason, I don't know if it's like an imposter syndrome thing, I felt like I wanted to prove to myself that I could do all right in the games before I started, broadcasting on the internet. And I mean, but even back when I started streaming, I've come obviously a long way as a poker player since then. So I originally wanted to get into streaming because of my dad. I would call him and talk about results and things, but I told him that I was going to set it up to where he could watch it on the computer and watch me play. And so I was in the process of getting everything set up with the equipment. It's actually a little involved with, as I'm sure you guys know, with running a podcast and things like that. You're just getting all the software, all the equipment, making sure everything's working. Mm-hmm. So I was in the process of that, and unfortunately, my dad passed away. This was about a month before I started streaming, so he didn't actually get to see one of the streams, which was a little sad. I like to think that he's still watching, and that was obviously impactful. But I think with what I've been able to do with poker, I would like to think that he'd be proud of where things have ended up. And so having the ability for him to watch was sort of a driver, and why I was getting into it, and then continued with it, because when we were in lockdown, it was a great way to socialize with people, right? Getting a community together of people that are interested in the same types of things is cool, and I really liked poker, because it brings people together from all different walks of life, and so it was a great way to socialize during the pandemic, and sort of kept rolling with it. And yeah, so I used to stream all the sites. It led to several opportunities. I did some things with stars, and then I when Bet Rivers was going to launch, I had reached out to them, saying that when they were launching that I was interested in working with them. I think that was another thing that was a little tough for me. Of like sometimes in this industry, like you have to just reach out to people yourself. Like you have to cold call yourself, and that was a little foreign to me. But it worked, and that they said they'd get back to me, and then when they were getting ready to launch, we discussed working together, and we're able to get a deal that's been working well, and happy to be working with them. Looking forward to continuing to work with them in the future. And yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a little different, working with when I used to stream all the sites to working with an individual site. But again, I do love the aspect of working with Rivers. Of still, they understand that as a full-time poker player, that having the ability to still play on other regulated sites is important. So they work with me on that, and then just like the opportunities that working with them has provided to interact with Phil Hellmuth, and represent their site. I think they do a great job with promos for the players. So Rakeback Revolution being an awesome Rakeback program. I'm excited for you guys to get it in New Jersey.
Yes.
Yeah.
Should hopefully be happening soon. I have no. They're not going to tell me like much earlier than you guys, and so we're hopeful soon. It's priority for them. So I think just getting more liquidity will help with the guarantees and things. But there's always a lot of promotions going on. They really do a good job of listening to the players, so they're very active in the U.S. Poker Discord and are very responsive to player issues. And that's like one thing I see is how the structure is set up is so the Phils, Galfon and Hellmuth are like official like ambassadors. Keith and I are members of the stream team, and so I mean I definitely see my role like also as I'm representing the site and promoting the site, but I also want to advocate for the players, and so if people have issues, talk to me. I'll try and put you in touch with the right person at Rivers, and we want to get things solved and make it a good player experience for everybody. And so definitely see it as that I'm advocating for a good environment for the community as well.
That's great, man. And just to backtrack here, because I think this is important. I couldn't imagine right now. I mean, I have both my parents in my life, and I love them very dearly. I couldn't. You can't prepare for something like losing a father, and from the way you describe it, it seems like you had a very close relationship with your father. How did that grief and how did that, losing that part of your life translate into you becoming a better man or a better poker player in the way you approach things?
Yeah. So yeah, that was definitely a challenge. I lost like both my parents like within a year of one another, and so I think like as I was raised, like my generation would you're still sort of being taught by your parents similarly to like how they were brought up, and as being the man of the house, like you got to be a tough guy, right? And like sort of fight through when things are hard, and I am fortunate to have a tremendous support system of my wife and son, and my wife's family I've grown very close with over the years, and they were incredibly supportive along with my family members. And so just having that support system in place is important, and yeah, just admitting like it's hard, and life can be tough at times, but just trying to remember the good times that we had together, and then also at like important dates and things, like just talking to my son about who his papa was, and I'm fortunate that my dad did get some time with my son before he passed several years, and so we have some pictures together that we keep in my son's room, to sort of keep his memory alive. And like I said, I like to think that he's still following along with this poker journey, and that he would think it's pretty cool that I've ended up here now.
I'm sure he thinks it's pretty cool. Lucas, I haven't jumped over to you in a second, so I want to see if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think it also gives you a certain bit of motivation too, right? Like knowing that, this was probably one of his favorite hobbies. I'm sure he had many, and just being able to not only like be good at the hobby, but to like share your hobby with other people via live stream, growing that community, helping to grow the poker community, or maybe getting someone new into poker who doesn't know what it is. And I think especially what you're doing is very important for the regulated markets. There's not a lot of streamers in the regulated markets, so seeing you do that, it's really awesome. And it's tough. I can only imagine. Like, I mean, I've both my parents are still doing well and they're healthy, but I can only imagine how much of a toll that takes. And we were talking before too about like using these moments and turning a negative thing into such a big positive thing and putting that energy into the right things. And I think you've done that very well.
I appreciate it. Very kind of you to say. And I think being in the content space has been a great aspect of because sometimes with it being a zero-sum game or negative-sum game with the rake, I guess, right? It can sometimes make you feel a type of way about like at least I have had times where I'm like, is this what I'm going to continue doing forever? But I think with the content side of things, providing space for people to interact and have fun around their hobby and generate community and make friends. Like I've made some of my best friends. So I talked about Brian earlier. Shout out to Shaka Braz and Envious. That's like our core group. So I go sim golf with these guys once a week, and we go out to lunch, and you make really good friends. And I've through people I've met with through Twitch, my fellow stream team member Accidental Grenade, as well as Teddy Rowe on Twitch, who's surplus value. We've gotten Airbnbs together for the World Series, and it's great to have this arm of things to where we can have all this positive community aspect as well.
You're friends with Shaka Braz?
Yeah.
Dude is a loose cannon. He wins, man. Every time I'm in a pub with Shaka Braz, I'm like, here we fucking go. Like, I'm ready to play for stacks. Let's go. It's like one of those guys you have to be locked and loaded, ready for, or else he's going to run you over. Sorry
Absolutely.
to call you
Very
out,
interesting
Shaka
style.
Braz.
So that started... I will credit Brian and Shaka with some of my transformation from a more nitty style to finding some more bluffs, or maybe some more creative bluffs of Shaka. And I have been I put together a Friday study group with several other regulars, Shaka being a part of that. And I think where I used to ask questions of should I fold or call, Shaka will say, well, why not raise? And so it gets you thinking about the game a little bit differently, and that's what's fun, right? I mean, there's multiple ways to win, but it's great to talk with people who think about the game a little bit differently, and maybe I'm not pulling the trigger on every spot, but if I can at least think about it and then maybe find it in a key moment, it can be beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, just being around Shaka's presence probably makes you want to play a little looser. It's such a unique style, and yeah, there's a lot of different. I would say Spit and Chiclet and Shaka Braz. We're getting into the players in the pool.
Spit and Chiclet is Brian. So.
Oh, it is. Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, you're friends with the craziest guys in the pool. That's so funny, man. God. Oh yeah, I've talked shit to Spit and Chiclet. I remember I was wasted one night, like just playing poker, drinking. and I felt bad for some of the things I said to. I've talked so much shit to so many people in the chat box, and like I hope they know that that's just. I'm a little.
It's a competitive juice is coming out. I get it. You know, you gotta you know, have some fun with it too. And like I don't know, I don't from the chat. I don't like take anything like personally. You know, so
Yeah.
I think it's all just part of the game, and I guess I almost like to see it, right? If like I'm hoping that maybe you're a little off the A game then, right? If you're getting fired
Right.
up in the chat, so it can be a good sign.
Well, speaking about somebody that tilts people, and a lot of people have a polarizing opinion on this guy, but I think if you meet him, then you just like it's so different than like on the virtual felt than off the virtual felt. I think you have a friendship with this person, Stony Pokes. Because every time I talk to somebody, it's like they either hate the guy or like they don't mind.
Yeah,
You know,
I love
it's
it.
very
You know,
funny.
I know some people. If you turn off the emotes, you know, you probably wouldn't necessarily be as tilted from the guy. But yeah, he's always throwing the tissues, and I love to throw him back. I think that's all, you know, fun and part of the banter of between other regulars. You know, I think if you're, I guess I will admit that some like when it first started, and sometimes from other players, I it can get to me sometimes. You know, when they get you in a spot and then throw you the tissues. It can be a little tilting, don't get me wrong. But yeah, no, I've ran into Sony at some of the live stops, and, you know, gentlemen in person. And,
Yeah.
you know, I think it's that's what's cool about the online space is, you know, interacting with some of the New Jersey regulars and PA regulars, whether it be out at the WSOP or I think I ran into him like first time maybe at Borgata. And it's just cool to like put a face to the screen name that you're battling with all the time. You know, it's like we spend a lot of time together, right?
Yeah.
And again, you know, while we can, you know, compete at the tables, you know, it's nice to grab a beer and you know, bullshit outside of the game as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to have him on at some point.
Yeah.
It-
Let's go back to Bet Rivers and streaming online because we didn't really get
There we
to
go.
touch too much on this. That's a really awesome opportunity. There's not a lot of regulated players in general who have a patch on them who haven't already made themselves in poker, quote unquote. You know, what's that responsibility like to know, like, you know, you're now representing a company. You're not just representing yourself, but you're also representing a company's interests. What's that experience been like?
Yeah, it's been great. You know, I've been with them for right around 8 months now. I started working with them right at launch, and you know, the team members that I communicate with, you know, we have a good relationship online, and you know, they are very clear in communicating, you know, like what they are, you know, wanting from us. It's mostly just, you know, hyping up the promos that they're providing for the players. You know, they don't necessarily like guide us on like what they want our content to be, because, you know, I like to think they signed us because of, you know, what they think we bring to the table or to the community, right? And so yeah, it's, you know, been really seamless of, you know, I'm essentially doing the same thing I was doing. It's just I'm playing on exclusively one site and, you know, hyping up all the deals that the players can get. And, you know, additionally, besides the online aspect of things, I was recently invited to go out. So Phil Hellmuth was doing some streams around the Bet River Spring Championship. He was streaming a couple days, and then in the middle he was going to do a casino appearance at Delaware Park Casino and play some 2-5. And so Keith and I went out for that, and that was an awesome experience. You know, to be able to play with some of the other online regulars that were invited to that, hear their stories, chat with them. And there was also some Delaware Park regulars there, you know, some live cash regs that were at that table as well. So that was a really great experience. So getting to do things like that is great as well. So, you know, being able to, you know, represent the brand in a live poker capacity, whether it be that or I was also, you know, wearing their stuff out at WSOP once we started working together. and made a little bit of a run wearing their stuff, which we can get into that if you'd like. But
Yeah.
it was really really cool, to be able to so that was my second time playing with Helmuth actually. So I played with Helmuth on No Gamble No Future. So that was actually an opportunity that Stars invited me to when they were sponsoring No Gamble No Future, and so. That was amazing, and Phil berated me, for a bomb pot that we
You
played.
probably loved that. I mean, that is an I made it
Oh,
moment
yeah,
in poker.
All my friends and family that were watching that like don't necessarily follow poker, they're like, "Why is this Phil guy being so mean?" Like, and I'm like, "No, that's his personality." Like, he was a gentleman after the game. Like, we shook hands and stuff, and so I know it's just part of his personality. Yeah, I was eating it up, and. Like just my buddies that I used to play with back in high school, those $5 and $10 tournaments that we were playing in my buddy's basement, like when they were just I again, like when I'm struggling sometimes or going through a downswing, I like to I'll go back and read the chat from that, of my friends sweating when I'm playing on No Gun and No Future, sitting next to Phil Hellmuth and Jennifer Tilly and stuff, so you that's I guess also the good side of the content space is I have clips from the big wins and things, and it's you can refresh your memory of yes, I did win previously, and it's not all doom and gloom ideally, but so it's been really great working with them. I hope to interact with Galfon a little bit in the future if possible, but Keith and I, like I said, are good buddies. And have stayed together for several WSOPs, and I just really like what Rivers is doing. I think they have a good trajectory, and I'm happy to be a part of their team.
I feel like there's a lot of things that I really want to get into with a few things with Bet Rivers. I guess first though, before we forget, I know you've made some deep live runs. Can you talk to us about those and how you were feeling and what that experience was like?
Absolutely. So I guess I have three that I can discuss. So the first one being the first World Series that I went out to. I want to say this was 3 years ago. So I have historically not sold action a lot, but for my first World Series, I did put a package together to just be able to play a little bit higher or play, multiple entries in some things that I maybe wouldn't have if I didn't sell. So I didn't sell a tremendous amount. It was I believe 35% of a total package. But I went out there and was having a good time with my friends, but mostly just bricking everything. And then the final tournament that I was playing was the biggest buy-in, a 2.5K. That is now transformed into the 3.5K mid stakes championship, but at the time it was a one-off 2.5K that was going on during the main. I like to go out for the World Series towards the end, around the main, mostly because everybody's withered at that point. It's you come in fresh, and all the regulars that are stuck for the summer are maybe not playing their best, and so game selection is key, everybody. But this 2.5K I was playing. And I joked in my Discord that, after I posted the brick of the previous tournament before that I was bricking everything. That I said I was going to go play the 2.5K where they respect my raises, jokingly. Move up in stakes where they respect your raises, right? Yeah, it's an old trope that we all know is not true. But I ended up final tabling that, and so that was awesome. My first World Series to. Make a final table, and make some money for my investors. Because it was some of my high school buddies or in college buddies that aren't even that much into poker, but they follow the Twitch channel and had some faith in my ability to get it done right, and I made them a little bit of money, which was pretty cool. But I would say at that final table, because it was a bigger buy-in, and Seth Davies was at that final table, and throughout the whole day two, I was playing with. Corey Aldemir and Joseph Chong and a bunch of big names and stuff, right? And so I sat next to Renlin and Cabral in that tournament. So it was playing with some big names, And I definitely felt like I didn't really belong there, right? Like, so that was like my first final table experience. I was like, just like amazed to like make a final table. And I don't know if you guys, if you watch the stream, I have this like final table shirt that I wear. It's like this ridiculous Hawaiian shirt with poker themed stuff on it. And so wearing that like at a live tournament was cool, but I definitely felt like a little out of place. But so that was
Yeah.
like my first final table experience. And then another series where I play a fair amount when I'm playing live poker is MSPT. So it used to be the Mid States Poker Tour. Now they've rebranded to the Major Series of Poker, the Tour, since they do stuff all around the country now. But they are in Michigan a lot, a couple times a year. It's actually like one of the like biggest tournaments, like at that price point. I think like it in the like Midwest, it's a 1.1K buy-in, but it has a million guarantee, but it constantly gets over 2 million in the prize pool. Like it's over 300,000 for first, and you're playing against all the barbecue dads. So it's a good tournament. So was able to right before I actually went full time with poker. So I've been full time for I'm actually approaching 2 years now, and so my time at Michigan and my postdoc was ending. My lab was closing. My wife was also leaving her postdoc, but she got like a really good biotech job. Again, she's a more accomplished scientist, so she had the real people job, with the insurance and stuff. And so I was contemplating going full time with poker. I was doing well results wise, and then I final tabled this MSPT, and that one I felt like that one was my first time in a live tournament where I was like, I'm gonna win this thing. At the like I was very confident that, like and again that's maybe due to the field and things like that, but was really confident. I didn't end up winning, but made a nice run, and that sort of springboarded launch of going into poker full time. And then that will bring to the final one that I can talk about is the most recent World Series. Was out there. I was originally not planning to go for an extended period of time, but I ended up satelliting into the MGM Championship. They do a great job with those satellite packages, and so I was out there for the BetMGM Championship at the Aria, and busted that, and was looking for other stuff to play, and so I late regged this Poker News Deep Stack 600 bracelet event, and ended up final tabling that one. And that was another one where at the final table I felt like I was going to win, but so that tournament day one was relatively standard, but day two was just like one of the most pure days of poker ever, where it's just like you're making value hands where they also have value hands, but you're just like a little bit better. Your bluffs get through, like everything just worked, and just cruised along day two, had the chip lead, and I was wearing my Bet Rivers stuff, getting some, because it was a Poker News specific branded event, there was like a little bit more media coverage, which was cool. And then it was actually a 4-day because it was such a good structure for a 600. Day three, when we bagged up with like 6 of us left, I had the chip lead for that as well. So chip lead for like 2 days, which is really cool, and felt really good. That's my biggest score to date. Fifth for like it was like 84, 85K or something like that. So I still haven't gotten the 6-figure score yet. That eludes me. I needed one more ladder, but again, I think just like as I'm starting to build up the experience, you and the scar tissue, just get more comfortable in those spots. I felt very comfortable sitting there in that, and that one was like it was during the main, so it wasn't like live streamed because they had everything devoted to that. But they did have us playing it like on one of the sets, like on the feature table. So like my wife flew out for the final table, and several like my Michigan buddies, as well as shout out to Burnt Ben, who you guys have had on. I really liked his podcast. He was on the rail, so it was awesome to like share that experience with my friends, and hopefully I'll be back. But I have a interesting stat, I guess, is I've only cashed 2 World Series events, and both of them I'd final tabled. So it's like I'm either not cashing or I'm making the final table, apparently.
It's pretty good.
So that's kind of a quirky stat.
That's a good. I mean, it's a good stat to have. You don't just have two min
I'll
casters.
take it.
You have two final tables. It's amazing. Like, you know, it's a dream. So Bet Rivers, anonymous pools. Let's get into the controversy here, because I'm sure you've listened to us talk about the negatives, and I don't think we've had a person on that had anything positive to say about anonymous pools. So I am curious to hear your perspective as someone who represents Bet Rivers. What are your thoughts on anonymous pools and you know, how that is either good or bad for the community, and some of the negatives and positives?
Yeah. So I know it can be, sort of controversial topic, and so I'm never gonna like say anything bad about like any of the other competitors in the regulated space. I play on them. I have respect for them. Um, I don't necessarily have issue talking negatively about some of the unregulated markets. I think some of the issue with the anonymous aspect of things, comes from, one of the more famous ones being Ignition, right? Where
Yep.
they have issues, with game security and game integrity that, you constantly see on social media. And so I think that's like, where some of the fear around the anonymous aspect of things is coming from. So in terms of, Bet Rivers, they're in these regulated spaces, particularly in, the Pennsylvania market. The gaming commission is incredibly strict, with, compliance and things. And so I have faith in the Rivers security team that they are on the up and up and, keeping track of, player trends. And I don't, obviously, as a player on the site, I'm not I don't have the purview of, understanding everything that they're doing in terms of security, but I just have faith that in the regulated market that they're not going to risk any licensing issues by not being on the up and up tracking things related to, bots or cheating in poker,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so Rivers' philosophy essentially is, to be an environment that's friendly to recreational gamblers. I know, we're a lot of the, people that we interact with, are regulars or other professionals, right? And it can sometimes be hard to remember back in the day, when we were less seasoned, right? And so I have players in chat that are recreational players that say they prefer to play on Rivers because of the anonymous pool. So try and think back to, when, if you're sitting at a live table and you run a big bluff and you get embarrassed, but maybe it's a great bluff, right? But just if you play a hand where people would, deem it, oh, you played that hand bad, or they think that you're stupid or something, that can be embarrassing for players. And so the anonymous aspect, is helpful in that. I think additionally, it can be fun for regulars as well, in that, I used to be guilty of being in a tournament and playing against somebody who I deem like a very good player, like, oh, they're not going to make any mistakes. And then maybe I take a different line than I should because I'm afraid to play against this player. It's an anonymous pool. You're just going to play your game, and you can have some fun as a regular as well. I think as regulars, we want information because we're good at utilizing that information, right? So I think, recreationals sometimes are turned off by the the discrepancy in information that like we have as professional players. Some of them, don't even know what HUDs are, right? And so Rivers does have the internal HUD, that is available to everybody. You do still have the ability to download hand histories and upload them to, PT4 and still like analyze your game and utilize information from the pool. And I would say that the player pool, because of the anonymous nature, games are good. Like we're clearly doing a good job of drawing recreational players into the field and into the pool. And that is an important aspect of what Rivers is trying to do. Because at the end of the day, as like all these companies, poker is a small drop in the bucket. The casino and sportsbook is, important part of the business, right? But Rivers definitely, with everything they're doing with the promotions and what they're trying to do with the anonymous pools, is provide just a good player service for and playing environment for players. But I definitely understand the reservations that people have, and
Mm-hmm.
you have to have some faith in the site, right? Which I do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, some really good points there. Lucas, I want your opinion on this too, because I go back and forth on this. What you guys seem to be doing with like everyone having access to like a fair, basic HUD, it seems good, and I think good for poker. I'll speak to some of the top guys who work really diligently with their HUD on like sites like MGM or Poker Stars, and sort of like some of it is like not appealing to like, for my sense, the way poker should be played. Like, oh, you shouldn't have this exact stat of how much he defends the big blind from this specific action. I don't think I mean, if I was playing as a recreational, I think I would have reservations and think that that's unfair because I'm trying to just play this game for fun, and I don't want to be statistically analyzed. And that being said, like, you should be able to track your own stats and your own hands and be able to upload hands. Like, WSOP doesn't do a good job at this as well. So I guess generally speaking, you guys seem to have found this nice happy medium, and also in an unregulated market, they kind of shifted that too. With the coin poker, now everyone can click on someone's name and have access to basic stats. Lucas, what's your perspective on the world of HUDs and what you have to add to this? Because part of me would like to see just this lunacy of like having PT4 and having just specific stats on everybody like go. Generally I've always had this opinion, like I don't think it's good if you're a reg, you're going to utilize it because all the other regs are doing it, right? But there needs to be some sort of discussion about this.
Yeah, my whole thing, I think like HUDs are being good with a HUD is a skill in and of itself that you have to sort of develop. Not only like sure anyone can just slap on a basic HUD and see someone's VPIP, PFR, 3-bet, whatever. But you can get like very technical with it and like very specific with it. And when the deeper you sort of dive into like where someone's leaking, like it kind of becomes like sort of a big edge really fast, because you can have a very basic HUD that says like, okay, this guy's just opening too tight from, well, you might not even know from where, right? You're just opening too tight, period. But you don't know where. Maybe he's too tight in later positions, and like in earlier positions, maybe he's actually opening fine or even a little wider. Like people have leaks in all different sorts of weird spots. So like PT4 and 8 Hold'em Manager or Hand to Know, whatever you use, it really allows you to just deeply analyze someone's game, especially once you have a sample on them. And you can really sort of like tear someone's game apart and just see like, okay, this guy's just leaking from here. I think I would like to see a world where you don't have to do a lot of this work. I mean, maybe it's a bit lazy, but like it would just be nice if the sites had just some standard HUD. Everyone can use that. You can only use that, and then you can just download your hands at the end of the night. And then if you really want to, you can like do a database deep dive afterwards and like, try and analyze someone's game after the fact. But I do think just the access to information, like in today's society, like people are just going to only get better at like knowing where to look at. Like I know there's HUDs for tournaments, like it'll tell you like at each stack depth how much someone is V-pipping, how much someone is open jamming. Like you can get like so nitty gritty with it, and you can like once you get a sample on them, it's really like kind of over. Like in terms of like where they're leaking and like exactly how to adjust. Whereas like I think maybe it's me wanting to still have a bit of mystery or like a bit of the beauty in poker, but like sort of trying to at least do some brain solving, As for like the anonymous pools, I don't know, man. Like if the games are good, the games are good. I think at the end of the day, poker players play where there's money to, especially as like a professional. I don't know how many pros really like vote with their wallet per se. I feel, and I could be wrong, but like I feel like the majority, whether tournament or cash, like if you hear the games are the softest on X site, you're probably going to play on that site. Um, so I
Yeah,
think
I mean, to speak to that, like in terms of like like with the Rakeback Revolution program, like I mean, I've spoken
yeah.
to several cash players that have moved significant amount of their volume, if not all of it, over to Rivers. I mean, it's definitely great. I think particularly if you're playing a lot of hands in a smaller like cash pool environment, I mean, you could speak better to this than I, and that I haven't been as involved in the online cash space, but. When you're playing in smaller pools, like you're saying, like yeah, you can really attack somebody's weaknesses once you get a sample size. So this helps with that. I mean, and I will say, with the tournament aspect of things as well, so I know there's like some criticism that we're not like linked with SharkScope. I understand that as well, because like I use that with my other sites, for tracking results and things like that. But as I said, you can get your hand histories and tournament summaries, and you can get those via email. You can upload your hand histories to trackers. So there is still ability to track your information. They also have via the client detailed statements that you can break down over various dates and periods. And yeah, like to the games being good aspect, like I am at a little bit of a information disadvantage in that. So per regulatory requirements as a member of their stream team, since I'm compensated by Rivers, I have to be de-anonymized. So I mean, if I was streaming, you would see my like de-anonymized name anyway. But I appear as just Dr. Dad Poker, and so there's definitely like I definitely saw it in the early my early dabble in like the higher buy-ins on Rivers of I'm playing with other regulars that I play with on other sites, that have like data from me on other sites, that I'm sure they're running me over in spots, because I am going to say, oh, I don't think population, generally speaking, is going to be finding this bluff or whatever, but they're just going to destroy me in that spot. And, and obviously, like I'm compensated by Rivers, to as a member of the stream team, so like I'm, accepting that disadvantage, and so, but even with that, I'm still doing quite well on the site. So, I you see some things. It's almost like you go back in time. I mean, and so I will say, like with Rivers, having West Virginia and Delaware, I mean, you guys being in New Jersey, you've seen like the maturation of the market, and you guys like were the first in the space, and so anytime you get new states, and some new players coming in, you see some interesting strategies, we'll say. And
Yeah.
if you're a good regular, you can definitely make some money.
Yeah.
It. Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing such great things in the spaces. Like, I mean, PokerStars now has merged with PA, and God, dude, it's like unbelievable on there right now. It's a lot of these sites are drawing like a lot of recreationals back into the game, and I think one site that's been struggling recently is MGM. Believe it or not, like I don't know why. Like, what do you think draws a recreational to a specific site?
Yeah, I think it can be a lot of different things, right? Like, I mean, I think a lot of times recreationals are probably just going to be looking at the guarantees, and it's like whoever has the biggest guarantees. But I mean, we definitely don't have the biggest guarantees at Rivers, and we're still doing a good job. I think that's due to like the promotions and the rakeback that's provided. So I mean, we're doing a lot of different promotions. There's promotions for like cash games with leaderboards. There's promotions for sit and go players as well as MTTs, and just like a lot of like free stuff that's given out in terms of swag. And like right now we're doing the April fills where you can win like bobbleheads of Helmuth and Galfon. And again, I think people just like things like that. I have some socks, back there. So I think that there's a lot of offering games of different stakes, right? So having like good offerings at like the lower buy-ins, like I start or even highlighting the lower buy-ins. Yeah, I mean, and I think I think it's good. Competition in the space is. I like to think of it as like a rising tide raises all ships scenario of if these regulated sites are competing with one another, they have to offer a good product and good promotions to draw people into the door, right? And so it's good for the players if the sites are having to compete with one another. And I think there's enough to go around of us regulars playing multi tables, like you can dabble on all of them. I mean, but I will say like I definitely will have shifted my volume throughout my online tenure based on what I'm feeling about the sites. I think that it's good if they're competing for our rake dollars, and so um, I'm enjoying what Rivers is doing on that front.
Yeah, and the other thing I think Rivers does good. So one of the things, or one of my, I guess, complaints against MGM is the fact that their rakeback is a little complicated, in the sense that there's many, like, the optimal way to hit rakeback is very different depending what state you're in, and then also
Right.
like it's not just like, oh, you can just play this, you can just play tournaments and hit it. Like, no, you'll have to play cash, and then you have to switch skins once you hit at a certain point, all this type of stuff. With all that being said, I know Bet Rivers is similar in that mold. However, you guys do offer 100% back, so that's a pretty big difference. I imagine, and full disclaimer in case nobody knows, but Justin and I are in New Jersey. We do not have Bet Rivers, so we do not know actually what it's like.
Hopefully soon.
Can you explain to us the rakeback system? So all I know, it's 100%, and you got to do a whole bunch of quests and stuff. But like, how does that work? And do you find it like digestible? Do you understand it?
Yeah. So in order to reach like the highest rakeback percentage, you do have to put in a fair amount of volume. But I would say, like, I mean, even regardless of like the rakeback percentage that you're getting, they're already like lower rake than some of the competitors in the industry, just starting out with, and so yes, like, some aspect of, what's going into like rakeback calculations is, at least for like the cash side is, leaderboards and things like that. But it is digestible in that, so Rivers has like multiple tiers of, rewards that you're a part of. So you have like a cumulative one that's like your tier that, rolls over like 6-month programs. So that, has like gold, platinum, black tier being the highest. So you're just accumulating points for that, by the rate that you're paying. And then they offer monthly deposit bonuses for your tier. So you can get, up to 20% 1x playthrough bonus. Having the bonus being only 1x playthrough is, not too challenging to reach.
Yeah.
And so those are monthly, which is great. And then you also have like another level. And so you can get like, I believe, up to like level 7, and so this other like level that has points that decay daily, and so how they're then calculating your like rakeback percentage for the week, or the bonus store points that you get to like transfer or turn in your rakeback, is calculated based on this like level system. And it's very clearly outlined, like when you click your account on the client, like how many points are decaying today, here's where I'm at, here's where I need to get to up to the next level. And I mean, as just like a full-time MTT player, that that's my sole focus. I'm not earning as much rake back as like somebody playing cash, right? But I'm still able to maintain level 4 easily. And during like higher volume times of series and stuff, I get to like level 5, and like level 4 and 5 is like where you can still like they also have a monthly deposit bonus for the level that you are as well. And so there's 2 deposit bonuses monthly for Rivers. And so, but you also get a weekly email for your Rakeback Revolution of summarizing, like, here's how many points you earned last month based on your level. This is the Rakeback percentage that you're getting in terms of translating to points. And then you can take those points and you can convert them multiple ways. So you can just do poker bonus if you want. You do get a better like return rate if you convert to casino or sports book, like sports bets. I usually convert mine to casino, and I'll just play like blackjack. Where I'm just hoping to like essentially break even, right, to get my like regular amount of rake back. But that's personal preference. Like everybody's obviously gamble responsibly. Everybody and I know like some of the like other regulars will play like baccarat or just bet banker because that's like the highest EV play. But I don't know, I just like playing blackjack every now and then. So but that's how I convert my rake back personally. And it's by far the most rakeback I've ever gotten on any site. With the volume that I put in, I'm getting anywhere between like $50 to $100 every week rakeback, and that's not even like not even close to like what I was getting on some of the other sites. So.
Okay, yeah. I hope you guys can come to New Jersey and come soon, man. I mean, games sound great, and I'm sure it'll also help with the guarantees. I mean, Jersey's probably the biggest. PA is a pretty big liquidity state, but like Jersey's pretty big in terms of liquidity. Could probably really boost those guarantees and really get that site going.
Absolutely.
Now, I do want to compliment the staff and the guys in the Discord, because I just, I'm sort of checking the channels, and I always see good stuff happening in that Bet Rivers channel. I think his name is Harry.
Harry's
does. Everyone seems to love him. He's the Bet Rivers version of Dave for us New Jersey guys. Yeah, I always hear good things. Always people like just talking good things in the Discord. They have their problems resolved. No angry messages in there. Not like in the Stars channel where every message is angry or sad. Maybe it's us New Jersey guys. Maybe we're just miserable. But
I don't know.
What's it like working with
I think you guys are a little hard on the New Jersey guys sometimes. Every New Jersey guy I've interacted with, at least in the poker space, you guys are upstanding gentlemen, but yeah, no, I mean Harry's great. He's like the primary guy that I am working with and communicating with, and he has experience running like live poker rooms, and Jesse, who is a big guy at Rivers in terms of the operation side, he's ex-player. Like I just and Andy who works, who's popping in the Discord a little bit more recently. Just a lot of experience in the space of designing tournaments and structures and series and things like that. And so I have a lot of faith in the operations team, and I think like they do also like help players out, and they do like things that are probably more meant for like general support at times. But like I will give kudos to Dave. I've interacted with Dave a lot. And yeah, similar things. I think when you have good people on the team that like care about poker and care about their product, it really shines through. And so I think that you see the positive interactions because they are actually answering the call for the players and implementing things that they want, and doing it in a timely fashion, and having some fun too. And it's great if we can have a friendly relationship with people on the operations side, because it's easier to request things or get things done if you're cordial with people, right? And I think building those relationships was important for Rivers, and I think they've done a good job.
Yeah, man. Speaking back to New Jersey people being miserable, it's just a funny dynamic, right? Because you have like this. New Jersey's always going to be more East Coast, a little bit rough around the edges, and you guys have that like Midwest sort of kindness or like what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. It's funny, like hospitality, maybe. Yeah. Because like the New Jersey poker community is great, and everyone's like a good person, but it's like it is funny going to Borgata. Like when you play in these live tournaments, somebody always has something to complain about, or even like you go up to like Frank. I crack up every time thinking about this. Every time I see Frank Finaro at like Borgata or a live event, I'm like, hey Frank, how you doing? It's like, structure's fucking bullshit. It's like the first thing he says. Buy-ins need to be bigger, go up with inflation.
Players always have something to complain about, though, right?
This is true.
And I mean, I will say to the New Jersey thing, one of my first experiences out of Borgata, I was at the table all day with Will the Thrill. I don't know if you guys know, like Will. I want to say his last name's like Vaea or something. He's a character, definitely like. I would say like poster person of like East Coast poker. So we had some good banter and fun back and forth. I think it's like you just kind of got to lean into it, have some fun. I feel like if you can crack the outer shell, right? You can then have some interesting conversations with people like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting community. I mean, Michigan just seems so random because it's like New Jersey, PA, Vegas, then like Michigan. Like, where did Michigan come from? I don't know. I'm rambling now, but
Hopefully, some more Midwest states. I don't know. Maybe some of your neighbors. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Wisconsin in there.
I mean, I know that there was rumblings that Illinois maybe, but it's tough with like trying to get something through legislative bodies, right, and get something pushed. And Indiana would be great as well because I do spend a fair amount of time there with my wife is from there originally, so her family is there, and I think there would definitely be a market for it in that like these turnouts for these MSBTs regionally are big, and so I mean, but so the MSBT that's in Michigan, it's in Battle Creek, sort of like in the middle. It's kind of hard to get to. It's like in the middle of nowhere, sort of. But you still get a massive turnout, for people from Minnesota. I mean, Vegas people fly out. They are going to actually be doing an MSBT at Rivers in Chicago, which I am excited about. That's going to be in August, and so I think the turnout for that one's going to be massive. There's like definitely hunger for poker in the Midwest, and so yeah, I think more states is always good.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but Bet Rivers has the most states out of any site, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Well, we're tied currently, yeah. So as of right now, it's Pennsylvania, Michigan, West Virginia, and Delaware. And then once we get Jersey, we will have the most, yeah. So.
Oh, man.
I imagine, does Bet Rivers, does the company have licensing for Vegas or no? Do they have a license out there?
No, so I think Vegas is a little complicated because you have to have a relationship with a land-based casino, and I think like it's relatively dominated by
Caesars,
other types of property like Caesars and MGM and things like that. I mean, but MGM also hasn't launched there, right? So like I think there's other things going on behind the scenes in terms of like, a lot of like land-based casinos are a little, I think, like weary of like the online product sort of cannibalizing some of their business. I mean, I think you see that sort of model with like same with Michigan, like you have to partner with a land-based casino as well. And so yeah, I mean, I think anytime you're dealing with like bureaucratic red tape and things, like it's unfortunate. I'm of the opinion it's like if we're all consenting adults, like let us play some cards, right? Like
right.
Ideally, that would be the case, but yeah, it's unfortunately poker takes a back seat sometimes. I think because like a lot of times it has to be attached to like casino or sportsbook because that's like the revenue driver, right? For like the tax purposes of like why a state would want to pass something, and so like some states that like already have these things like. Is poker really going to move the needle that much? Like, not necessarily. So, like, is it a massive priority? Maybe not. But, I mean, I will say, like, if you're in a state that wants to get it, contact your representative, your legislator. I mean, I think that's, like, how things got going in Michigan was a group called, like, the Poker Players Alliance, that, like, they were sending letters all the time and, working with people in, like, the Michigan Senate and things like that, So, I think, and I know that, like Keith, my fellow stream team member, he did a lot of work, with getting PA to, getting a group of PA players together to help them join the multi-state agreement, and so that was like another example of the community coming together and reaching out and getting in touch with like the right, legislature at the time to, help expand the make it for a great environment for online poker for PA players. And so, if you want poker, we got to take some action, and hopefully we can get some more lobbying in the poker space because it's a great game, and I want to see it continue to grow.
Yeah, I mean, poker's like this. It's so weird in the U.S., right? And you see like the lodge get raided and all these things that like it's almost like poker's constantly fighting just for like its place in the world or the U.S. market per se. where that was just like a good card club, and it just feels like sometimes the focus is on the wrong things. Like what concerns me is how these sports betting companies, they will prey on individuals, absolutely prey on them, offer them free bets. It's just like what the cigarette companies did earlier on. And unfortunately, poker is just going to be like wrapped in that world to some degree at all times, because we rely on these companies to be able to give us a platform to play poker and to exercise like playing our sport, our mental sport. And so it's really unfortunate. And right now there's an absolute epidemic going on. I know we've talked about this before on here, but I know people who've gotten just crippled by sports gambling addiction, and it's a horrible disease. And that specific addiction, it very rarely involves poker. And to some degree, I would like to see just. I don't know what I want to see, but I just wish, like, why is sports betting legal all over America in like 3 years, online sports betting and offering free bets to people, but poker, you can't like have a place where people come and sit down and play cards and do it responsibly. There's always going to be people that will be unresponsible with their bankroll, right? And you can't force people to be responsible, but yeah, it's just sad, man. It's really hard to navigate.
Yeah, I mean, in regards to that, like, I think, like, I agree that there's definitely some concerning stuff like on the sports betting side, and with where the trajectory of that is going. I will say, like, at least like in the regulated space, there's stuff like built in, to having funds going to prevent like further Gamblers Anonymous and things like that, or funding things like that, So I will say that, like, at least like the regulated space is cognizant of that, and doing things that are positive, ideally, right? And I mean, it's like I have mixed emotions sometimes of like like being in our industry of like it being associated with casino and sportsbook and things, but it's like I love poker and that's the space that I'm in, and so it's like I promote poker. And just hope that again, we're all consenting adults, and that hopefully gamble responsibly, and if not, that you can utilize the resources that are available, and so I think that it hopefully because I think poker has always in its history been sort of seedy, like gambling, things like that, but nowadays the poker players, like, especially like the ones that are doing all right, like, we're a bunch of nerds, like that love a competitive, like, mental game, and so I think like the shift of it being thought of more of as like a strategy game is slowly we're getting there, but you also talk to people who you say you're a professional poker player and they just ask if you count cards and things, right? So we still have a ways to go in terms of education, right? But I think just unfortunately, like, I think the lobbying power is behind the other things because it makes a lot of money, right? Like, at the end of the day, companies are trying to make dollars and increase their shareholder price. But just do my part to say poker's great. Hopefully you come play with us and gamble responsibly, right?
Yeah. Well, once you guys launch in New Jersey, you'll definitely see me on there. I'll tell you that much. And it's just one state at a time. It's going to be a slow process. We may get one state every 2 to 3 years. Who knows? But as long as we keep adding states, more liquidity, the better. I'm also of the belief all rising tide lifts all ships. So, hopefully more. I know Virginia, I think it was, had like a failed recent attempt, but who knows? Maybe they'll revisit that in the next couple of years. It gets passed. That would be a huge market. It's slow, but things are doing pretty well as they are now, and who knows? Maybe new operators in the space come in too, right? We've seen FanDuel's, right? That's happened just the other day. they came in, and Poker Stars is now on FanDuel. That's the games on there are pretty unreal. I won't lie. I mainly play tournaments, but I even like hopped in some late night cash games, and it was just sort of it was equal amounts of regs and fish at like each table. It was. I don't think I've actually ever seen it happen on regulated, even at even at like 1 or 2 a.m. It was quite eye opening to see. So who knows? Who knows?
There's this momentum thing, right?
Yeah.
More like recreationals want to play with recreationals, and also like a pro here and there, right? Because it's competitive. But like regs don't want to play with all regs, and recs don't want to play with all regs. Like that, there's this like fine balance, and it's so important to always keep like. It's so important to draw the game constantly to recreationals, because it gives them a chance to be successful and win. It's easier to be a break-even player. It so much of, I guess, what I've learned is that there's a lot of momentum in, like, recreationals are the fuel to this game. People that play for fun, people that relax playing this game, and like professionals and regs have a responsibility to create an environment where they feel safe and give them the ability to have fun, because at the end of the day we need recreationals, right? Like no one would be a pro or a reg if like people didn't play this game for fun. I guess that's a random thought, but kudos and thanks to Bet Rivers and all these other companies just doing their damnedest to keep poker fun and keep recreationals in the game as poker has changed so much with solvers and people. And yeah, I mean, it's part of the reason why I think just HUDs should be banned unless everybody has access to them, because I use, like, if I'm a recreational, like, HUDs are super predatory the way they've been utilized.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in terms of, like, making the environment, fun for recreationals, yeah, that's, like, absolutely important. I mean, and so, like, I mean, obviously, we're mostly, like, online guys, but, like, yeah, trying to do that in a live space as well, and, like, not just sitting there with your headphones, like, chatting with people. And, you can learn a lot. Obviously, people will give you a lot of information about how they're thinking about the game just by chatting, but you can also, like, learn something cool about somebody's life, or, it's a way, as I talked about earlier, of interacting with people, from all walks of life that you would maybe not chat with before. And it's what makes it a really cool space.
Dan, tell us a bit about the Bet Rivers, like, the daily schedule, because I've never seen it. I don't know what it actually looks like. And tell us about, like, during a series, do they have, like, I know Stars is probably the best at this in terms of just having, like, these random one-off scoop events that it's like a 3 max or a 4 max or a total KO, or they'll have a heads up, for example. They work in a lot of interesting events, and I'd like to see a bit more of that from, like, the other operators we have available in New Jersey, like from MGM. I know MGM has software limitations, so they're sort of handcuffed in that, but, like, WSOP probably could do some stuff. WSOP, it's a lot of mystery bounties. I'm kind of okay with it, but I'd like to see more variety. What does Bet Rivers have on, like, their nightly schedule or during a series that's fun?
Yeah, so if you're looking for, like, bigger buy-in stuff, the, like, high roller, it's a $200 high roller that is on Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. There is 100 every night, the Benjamin, which then is the main event on a Sunday. And then, they have every night, like, like a vanilla and or PKO at, like, a lot of different price points. And so it's like they'll have, like, an earlier $50 tournament, the Grant, so all of them have, like, names for the dailies. And, so then they'll have, like, a 50 PKO a little bit later in the night. That's the title fight. Then they'll have the $5 starting at the same time. They'll have a $5 version called the undercard. So they try and sort of hit all the buy-in points. As of right now, it's primarily vanilla and PKO. I know there is some interest in mystery bounties. I think that's something that they're working on. Uh, Also on the team in the operation side, there's a lot of advocates for mixed games. So Keith and I both like mixed games a lot. I know that's something that they would like to get down the road. So I'm advocating for it strongly. I think mixed games is fun, sort of flexes a different part of your poker brain, and it's fun to dabble for sure. But they also have PLO, and so there is a nightly like PLO PKO, and then they also have like a weekend wrap. PLO PKOs are fun. I mean, you got 4 cards.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to chase bounties. It doesn't really matter what the 4 cards are, and so that's a lot of fun. During series, they will do like some different structures, like with 6 max and things like that. I don't know if we've done like any like 3 max or 4 max or things like that, but they will get some bigger buy-ins as well for the series. Like we've had some 500s. They haven't had a 1K yet, but I think it's just building up the player pool, and I think like with the series also boosted guarantees obviously, and the physical trophies are awesome. The leaderboards, so I think there's a little bit of something for everybody. If they'll have at any given time, like when one tournament's ending, there'll be like a couple new tournaments starting that are at like a similar price point, with one being either like a $5 or $50, so like people can play with what they're comfortable with.
Do they have turbos and hypers?
Yes. Yeah. So typically, like, I know you're a turbo and hyper guy. Yes, they do have some late night tournaments. I feel like we probably grinded against each other on some of the late night schedule stuff. Speaking to the importance of sleep, I've tried to get away from some of the like really late night stuff because my kid gets up pretty early in the morning. So that was definitely something I struggled with in the past, was like not getting enough sleep. And so I will say getting a little bit more sleep definitely improvement for the game. So, but the games are so good at those late night ones, right? So I get that, and it gets later in the evening, like the stuff starting like past like 9 o'clock, going to be like turbos, things like that. So, yep, varying That's speeds, and but then for like some of the earlier events of the day, or for like the main event on Sunday, like slow structure, so that get a little bit more play.
Now that you bring that up, I actually slow rolled you in the Moonlight once, because a while ago we said that we could slow roll each other, like a long time ago on the stream when I was watching your stream, and you bluffed into me, and I just had the stone nuts, and I was like, oh, like I was doing the emojis, like what do I do? Like I just threw I smashed you with the tissues and called last second. God, it's amazing.
I can appreciate a good slow roll. Anybody who's watching, if we're playing against one another, like go for the slow roll. I think it's fun. So again, like if you take a lighthearted approach to it, it can be beneficial. And I think it's fun little needle that's not too hurtful or anything. So I approve.
Good. Those late night tournaments are great.
Dan, if you could add an event, like we call it the Dr. Dad tournament on Bet Rivers, what would you want to see? Give us the buy-in, the structure. What format would you want it to be? You just give your pitch to Bet Rivers right here. You just clip this and just send it to them.
Yeah. That's fun. I guess I haven't really thought about that. I guess I'd maybe like to have it like stand out. You'd almost like want to have it be like a different like buy-in point than normal, right? I think you could have like almost like either like a high buy-in version and a low buy-in version of like the Dr. Dad high roller, or like the Dr. Dad Junior or something like that, or Dr. Dad smaller stakes one. I don't know what you'd title it, but I don't know. I like bounties. Bounties are fun, especially when you get a big stack. So probably a PKO, and I like the number 3. So let's go with like a $33, and then how about like a bigger one? How about a $333 buy-in?
There you
seems
go.
kind of fun.
All right, Bet Rivers. There you go. Next series, you know what to do. Do your magic.
All right.
You want it to be fast. You know what my dream is, Dr. Dad? What is my dream? I love that Fast Friday tournament on WSOP, the $100. I love $100. Like, it's such a clean number. $100 hour registration period, hyper. Like that day.
Yeah, that's like over in like a couple hours and turbo. Yeah, I mean, I like turbos. I've had how I built my role, like, was playing like some of the later night stuff, like the turbos, like where it's like playing deep stacked against like some of these good regulars, like they're probably just beating me pretty bad in some spots, right? Where it's like if we're like 20 big blinds, like I'm pretty confident in my ability at that stack depth, right? So
right.
I completely get that, and it's like let's just like get there, not drag it out for hours. I'm all for the fast structures. I'm with you.
Yeah, and by the way, people just think I just get. I was gonna say something silly. Let's try to tame it down. I get very turned on by only turbos and fast structures.
Flip that one.
But I do love like the nightly stars. I love a good slow structure, but
not
there's
everything
no
needs
reason
a good
to
structure.
not everything needs a good structure, and not everything needs to be long. Like speaking of the main events, like I don't know. I think of like that scoop structure, or like some of the ring structures, like 15-minute levels. Like those have their space too for me. But dude, if it's midnight, let's get this shit over. Let's see who wins quick. Let's play 15 bigs.
I mean, on that note, I think it could be kind of fun to have like some of those faster ones earlier in the day as well. I know like sometimes it can be like harder to like get them running maybe, but like I think like having a fast one, because like I don't know, there's definitely something about like if you're grinding a Sunday and start kind of early. And then if you like have a result early, it's like you almost feel like you're like free rolling the day, right? Of like, I think it can be fun to try and sprinkle in some like ones where it's like, all right, I'm already done with this final table, got a good result, and now I'm like getting into the meat of the schedule, but I'm already feeling good because I'm like free rolling the day. I'll talk to him about that.
Do you remember the Poker Stars marathon?
That's a long one, yeah.
That
I always just maxed.
Oh my lord!
Yeah.
It's 4 hours of. I mean, it was abysmal. There's like 1.3K up top. I remember like final table at like 9 p.m. when all of the big stuff is running and you're in like. And I got like 80 bigs at the final table, and like the average stack is like 50. I'm like, can we just end this tournament so I can just find another table to put there? I'm going on a rant
back to the
again.
recreational side though. I think back to the recreational side though. Like again, we're like multi-tablers that are, I don't know how many tables you guys play. I'm usually on stream. I'm like 6. But I'll play like up to 10 off stream. But like there are a lot of recreationals like only play one or two tables. Like they only play one tournament at once. So
it's true.
I'm sure there are lovers of the marathon. But yeah, I see where you're coming
It has
from.
its place.
Sure.
Yeah. I'm being very selfish.
Yeah. My thoughts on launch
get it.
structures, I've always felt like it should, whatever the big event of the night is, that should be the longest structure, the best structure, whatever. And then everything else, like, for MGM it's Asino, right? That should be the best structure of the night. Everything else should sort of come second to that, unless there's like a 250, they'll have a 256 max or whatever that the 250 buy-in is for the day. But whatever the staple is, it's always got to be the best structure. And then the buy-in below that, on a Sunday maybe you can have like a nice long structure, low buy-in tournament, or like mid stakes to low stakes buy-in tournament. But besides that, I've always felt like you got to build around that staple event. The Benjamin on Bet Rivers, right? That should have the best structure, and then go from there during the series.
Lucas, I'll disagree with you a little bit here. I think lower buy-in guys that are trying to learn and get better, they should have their opportunities every night. So what I thought Poker Stars did well was like they had the 100, the 250, and then like the 30, all the same structure pretty much. And that gives an opportunity for people of all buy-in levels to experience a structure like that.
Yeah. I mean,
like,
I will
it's
say,
just...
like, the Hot 5 on Stars, I think like 3 months ago, I was playing 5s, don't ask me why. I FT'd the Hot 5 of Stars, and I kid you not, the average stack was 60 big blinds. and I was like, what is this? Why do we have... I was like chip leading with like 90 bigs, and I was like, why is this so deep? And like the levels were, it was like, I think 10-minute, like 8 or 10-minute levels, and I was like so shocked. And so yeah, but it is selfish in my point of view, but like the lower buying guy should have the opportunity to experience some slower structures as well. They have their
Yeah, I mean,
place
we
in
all
the
start
schedule.
from somewhere, right? Like, and I think like having satellites is important as well. Of like, I'm
Yes.
definitely an advocate of satellites and a big satellite player. I put in tremendous satellite volume, and that was like how I started out. You know, it's like I built my role like playing the lower stakes, and then satelliting in to play some of the bigger stuff, and that was the only way I was playing the bigger stuff before. And I mean, there's definitely like it's a little bit of a different game, but like there is edge to be had in satellites. I think it's a lot of fun to utilize that as a mechanism to play some bigger stuff and then build up that experience in that space.
Yeah.
Rivers does a lot of promos with like awarding like satellite tickets, particularly
great.
around series and running a lot of satellites. So I think
That's good.
that it's a great way to get some other people into that price point.
Also, maybe having a portion of Rakeback as tickets is great. So when I was playing on Party Poker when I first started, just like 50 and L, grinding it out, 25, 50 and L. I remember like a lot of my Rakeback was it almost like it's an opportunity, right? Like I would get some cash Rakeback and then a $250 ticket, and I'm like, and like $100 ticket. It presented like it got me into tournaments, right? Like it created this amazing opportunity, and I sucked at tournaments. I wasn't even a good poker player, but like, like I think giving people an opportunity for that big score when you're early on in your poker career is very, very appealing, and I think that's why it concerns me the way MGM's Rakeback has worked, because having a good rakeback structure that's easy to understand, that's creative, right? And it seems like Rivers has kind of nailed it with that, where you guys are creating, creative ways to get rakeback, and always thinking about that aspect of poker players. It's awesome. So thank you for bringing that up today and discussing that.
Yeah. Dan, so I want to talk to you about actually sort of backtracking a bit your background in education and how that's actually helped you improve at poker, because normally I would say probably for 90% of poker players, the way they end up playing or getting into the game is they learn the game, they learn the rules, they play. Either they start as a recreational just for fun, and they're either competitive about it, try to get better. But like the actual process of studying and learning how to study is not obvious unless you have a coach. So it's a lot of like figuring it out, because most of us don't have a background in education, so we don't know what the best ways to study are, to take in material, all these types of things. What were some of the things that helped you improve your game when you were just like trying to get better?
Yeah, so I mean, I think like what I tell other people and like how I started is like, just utilizing free resources. So like watching Twitch streams, and I know like some people will say that's maybe like not as educational, but it's like you got to start somewhere, right? And start with like free content on YouTube. I got into training sites pretty early. I work with GTO Lab now, but like I worked with BBZ historically. I have a lot of good things to say about both of them. I did work with a coach. He's a PA guy, Schwibs, and I think like after like playing for a little while and then working with a coach, like he really sort of helped me like understand like how to like look at data from your like database, and then utilize that to study, and setting up drills on Wizard. So like when I'm studying by myself, it's working through drills on Wizard, watching, doing. So I've also been doing a lot of work with I like GTO Labs trainer for final table simulation stuff. That's what I've been doing a lot of lately, and just watching coaching videos, whether it be BBZ or GTO Lab, learning from some of the best in the business. But like what I found that's like been really impactful for my game is like setting up like that study group that I was talking about. So I'm part of a couple of them. It's great to like talk about different topics and hands. We'll do different things. Some days we'll just do a like a tournament review of somebody's. Other times we'll look through our database and say like, I am not donking turn. Like let's like look at donk turn situations and just utilize some of these study tools. And you're talking with players that think about the game differently, and you can get like perspectives of like when I'm in this spot, I think this is how people are perceiving me, and then it might be completely different for somebody else, right? And so just developing community is great. I think like you can do it as a lone wolf, but it's just like a little bit harder. And so I would just like recommend like working with other people and building groups where you can then again like celebrate each other's successes, or because or if you're going through a tough time, like you can talk about it with your friend. Like not everybody understands like what we're going through as poker players, and so yeah, having a community of other people who do what we do is very important. And so yeah, I mean that's like some of the things like that I've done, but like in terms of like coming from the PhD background and things, like you're just being able to like identify like what I think is like pretty decent information or things like that, or just like like efficient ways of studying, of not just like bouncing around, or not like just like looking at like spot checking or seeing like how my exact hand plays in a spot, more so like looking for like concepts or heuristics, and seeing of like, okay, I played this hand in this spot, but like what are other hands in my range doing, or like what are my bluffs here. Like I think like part of the reason I struggle with bluffs historically was I wouldn't necessarily like think about like what are my bluffs in this spot, and so yeah, I think that those are some of the things. And I one thing I wanted to touch on as well, of like, I guess I'm kind of came from like a different path than others. Of like, I went to school forever, did an undergrad, did a PhD, and then I just like left that to play poker. And like what I would say to others is like, I'm obviously like very privileged to like be in the position that I am, of like had good financial like stability before I went full time, and like my wife was in a good position, so I obviously lucky in that aspect of things. But I would just like advocate to people to like do what you like, and if you have a dream of like pursuing this, like obviously do it responsibly, but like just do it, because like I felt like if I didn't try and do it, I would have regretted it. And so and it's like, and again, I'm speaking from a position of like it's gone well since I've done it, so there's like the survivorship bias aspect of things, right? So maybe I'm not saying the same thing if I just, torch my bankroll like right when I go full time, but you can just pursue what you want, and if it makes you happy, do it, right? Like poker made me happy, and has like brought like more time and balance to like interacting with my family, and I love science. Like I enjoyed my time as a scientist, but I'm really liking being a poker player.
That's amazing, man. That's a good message for a lot of people. If anybody's listening and doesn't is unsure to pull the trigger on something like this, and again, I'm speaking from. It was easy for me to jump in it too, because it's got into it as a single person living at home, and like didn't really have many things to worry about, like a family or like people depending on me. So I come from a position of privilege as well with this. But yeah, unless Lucas has any other questions, I do want to wrap up by asking you, what are your goals for the future? Where do you see yourself this year and years to come? And what's on Dr. Dad's agenda?
So for in terms of like this year, I mean, I think just doing a lot of what I've been doing. Want to continue playing online, streaming. Happy to be continuing to work with Bet Rivers. I do dabble in live. I will be playing some MSPTs here coming up in Milwaukee, where I'm from originally, as well as here in Michigan. Look to get out to the WSOP. I'm sort of waiting to build my schedule for that, in terms of seeing like what some of my friends are doing, and so like to get out there. But yeah, and in terms of moving forward, I'm again, like I said, I'm having fun playing poker right now. I think historically, like other generations and things, it's like you pick something and you stayed in that for years and years until you retired. If you'd have told me 6 years ago that I would be playing poker professionally right now, I would have probably laughed at you, right? So I think like just being open-minded on like opportunities in the future, and I'm just enjoying what I'm doing right now. You just want to continue to be a good husband and good dad, that Becky and Jake are very important to me and have been incredibly supportive of everything I'm doing, and I'm very grateful for that. And so yeah, just creating a good environment for them, and having some fun playing some cards while I'm doing it.
Awesome, man. Yeah, congrats on all your success.
Thank you,
Dan. Thanks for coming on, talking to us. Really appreciate your time. Where can people find you? What's your stream schedule like?
I can be found at Dr. Dad Poker across all platforms. I'm most active on Twitch for the streams. Post some stuff on X and Instagram. I did post shorts on YouTube. They're kind of cracking down on some of the poker stuff sometimes so I haven't been posting as much on there. But Dr. Dad Poker everywhere. You can typically find me on Tuesday, Thursdays, and Sundays at like 7:30 Eastern is typically like around when I'm starting. I do stream more days like during series and at other times as well. Like this week, I'm going to be streaming a fair amount. But typically Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, and I really appreciate you guys having me on, letting me yap about my poker story, and I've really enjoyed what you guys are putting together here. I think you're doing a great job of highlighting a lot of the awesome regulars in the online space that we battle with all the time, and kudos to you guys for stepping up and really churning out some great content. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Means a lot.
Yeah. We continue. We're gonna keep pushing the content out there and just keep doing our best. We love this, and obviously getting to know you guys and everything you've done, your story, your goals to be a great dad, great husband, and content creator and poker player. It's awesome to see, and again, congrats, and I wish you the best in the future. And Lucas and I will see you on the felt.
Thanks again. Cheers, guys. Cheers, guys. Yeah, I'll be following along. I'll be watching all your guys' podcasts, so I look forward to seeing more.
All right.
Thank you.
Awesome, man.